Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Night Owl Season 6, the opening round here from Imola in Italy. And we have the old band back together. I'm here, Jesse Lee, joined by Ryan Mawson and Nick Setnick, as always, on the cameras and the broadcast. And we're joined by a whole host of stewards as well. It is good to be back, Ryan. It's good to be here with you. Season 6. It's going to be an incredible. We've got some returning names and some new names as well. I'm excited to get going.
Yeah, a bit like the Blues Brothers. We had to get the band back together as it was, and a lot of the old names returning for this season. As we noticed, the 777, Sebastian Brunier, Super Seb has made a return. We've got Benjamin Harman in his new position in Pro, still in the Porsche. Be interesting to see what he can do now in the Pro category, and what he can do is take it into the gravel at Villeneuve. Samir Forsch, Max Payne has swapped sides now with Chris Vining. We've gone from Nissan Ferrari, just in the other way around, see what each drivers can do. And yeah, what a track for an opening Imola. It really tests your skill, does this circuit, especially for the length of time that these drivers are going to be ploughing around here.
Well, it's going to be an action-packed season. Let's just run you through some of the finer points. This is not a four-race series like the summer seasons were. This is a full-blown season. We're calling it Season 6. It is Night Owl. There are some tricks and turns and some drama certainly to follow. And of course, as Ryan Mawson just alluded to, we have a GTR in the field, but it's not Chris Vining. So Chris Vining is in the field, but just not in a GTR. That's insane. The Bentleys have been running rampant here in practice, as to be expected somewhat. But it's going to be a season full of surprises. And of course, let's just get you started here. How does Night Owl work? What makes Night Owl different? Well, it takes place in the evening for most of the world, or actually just the afternoon in America. It was originally thought up by Mike Jones to give people that lived in North America and South America an easier start time to races, a more natural start time for those areas. What we couldn't have ever expected was that to not affect European participation in the slightest. Night Owl, for that reason, a lot of Europeans still competing in this series. A lot of European champions as well have won the Night Owl series. And sometimes we do race in the dark, but not to be at the moment. Well, here are a few of the things that are going to happen this season, or have already happened in some cases. Other than race one, whenever signups opened for this series, they didn't know the other courses that they were going to race on, so they could not pick a car based on knowing what the events calendar looked like. Well, as soon as the season started, so to speak, the entire calendar revealed. So when they picked their cars, they only knew they were coming to Imola and not any of the other races. This isn't a 6-race season. This isn't an 8-race season. It's a 7-race season. And I don't know why Mike Jones has done that, other than it is chaotic. Think about it, folks. How many times have we come down to race 7 out of 8 in a series and it been dramatically close? So I think with an odd number of rounds, you are going to see that yourself. A lot of teams and drivers have swapped in class, as Mawson alluded to as well. There is also the prospect of a team championship, not required. You can run by yourself, but some of the guys and gals out there have teamed up. And for teams this season, you have to be in the same manufacturer of car. In some seasons past, it was not necessary for that to occur, but this season it is. If you are in a team and you're running a Ferrari, your teammate must also be running a Ferrari. And oh, by the way, random pit requirements has returned. Of course, that's announced day of the race. And today's pit requirement, Mawson, well, there is none.
Yeah, which means that some of the people who can run it long is going to be the tail of Imola, and the front engine cars I think are really going to dominate here. Like you said earlier, the Bentleys were seemingly running away with it in practice, but they're so planted here. You can just throw it over curbs and the car basically barely reacts to it. The Aston Martin's very good. Ferrari is very fast, but it's quite a jack of all trades is the Ferrari. There's not many tracks where you would take a Ferrari and go, "Ooh, it's absolutely undrivable here." So that'll be sort of the mid engines that I'm looking for. But yeah, no pit requirements. And as he says, you didn't know what track you were coming for. You could pick a Mercedes Evo, which is probably one of the fastest cars around here. But then you could be struggling and fighting the car for the rest of the season. The Mercedes does have quite a few tracks that it is not happy at, and it wants to sort of wallow around. But otherwise, you've picked your car. You've got to deal with that. And yeah, what an opening round as the checkered flag comes down on free practice. And let's see what people can ramp up in qualifying. 16 degrees as well. So if we keep with this temperature, I'm going to expect people might just about edge into the 40s. Some of the fast guys.
There's so much to take in for this series. We're going to spin the entire race. By the way, 60-minute race as usual. The finale of the series in 8 weeks' time, because there is a mid-season bye week. After the seventh race in week 8, that will be a 90-minute race. But for the duration until that point, 60 minutes and a random pit requirement. And I think we're just going to take it one by one. We're going to be mentioning a lot of returning drivers in different classes, and some drivers that maybe have been in other series here at RCI that are returning to Night Owl, perhaps for the first time in several seasons. And you know what I find very interesting, Mawson? The two names you mentioned first, Seb Brunier and Benjamin Heilman, both Night Owl champions back this season. It's going to be awesome. Qualifying starts. 15-minute quali. All the cars out on the track at the same time. It's easy. Get the fastest lap, get the pole, and have the best shot down into what is effectively turn 2. But it isn't quite that simple, as Benjamin Heilman knows, as they get out in front of the field. And that actually might be very beneficial here in this session.
Yeah, track position is definitely going to be interesting, with the amount of drivers that we've got. We have 32 drivers all sat coming out of the pit. And track position at Imola is quite strange. You'd think with the lap time, it's a 141 lap time. It's a fairly big circuit. But because a lot of it is straights, you can easily bunch up to people with the slipstream. And yeah, a lot of people wanted to get out early, get that space and run their laps. For the 796 though, I'll have to see if he runs the full qualifying, Benjamin Hardman, or maybe he might drop back after a little bit. The Porsche struggles in a straight line. I've seen some Porsche drivers before who will deliberately sit behind some of the faster cars to get a tow down the long pit straight that we've got here from the final corner all the way to turn 1. Is you can gain some quite serious speed in the slipstream. But for the first go around, no slipstreams to be had. So let's see what Benjamin Heilman can do in that 796, the all mint green Porsche. Not one that you can exactly miss on the track, can you?
Yeah, bringing back the mint green is Benjamin Heilman, still with the same team name from a season ago as well, paying homage to fellow broadcaster Nick Setnick, who's with us in the booth, of course. And he brought the same car he won the championship with, but oh my goodness, all over the place, the curves. That's definitely not the fastest line through there.
That is not, but I think that's partly a cold tire and probably an extremely low-fueled Porsche. That combination is not really one that I would be happy with. Generally, the Porsche gets quite tricky on cold tires, gets quite tricky when you take the fuel out of it. Combining that, probably not a brilliant combination. But this man is one who's returned as well, Chris Vining. We've seen this name quite a few times in Night Owl. Has had some good races, some great battles that we've seen him in, and quite a varied amount of cars, Chris Vining. He's always sort of a what will he turn up in next? And returning to the Ferraris, which is we've seen him in a few times now. Interesting paint scheme as well, and I think this paint scheme ties in with the one of the other Ferraris in the field. So I think he is a team partner.
Yes, indeed. Bart Macha in the chat lamenting Stewie's, or Benjamin Heilman, as most people know him, lamenting his livery choice. Listen, he's going to stand out, Bart, I think, is the point with that, as everyone now coming to finish their first flying lap. I was wondering if the 796 might have invalidated like going over the curb, but as far as I can recall, that curb is not particularly stingy about going over it, so hopefully that has not occurred. Actually, it did indeed invalidate his time for Benjamin Heilman, as he's out on another lap. Samir Foch, the quickest overall, a 41.469, and immediately back down the pit lane. What does that tell you, Mawson?
Probably going to go with wrong tire pressures, maybe. It would be kind of rare that you've pulled in that early, but if you've done your warm-up lap and you know that you're still miles off what your target pressures are going to be, then maybe he's gone back in, just tried to get some adjustments and back out there. Then getting back out there in a nice clean gap will be definitely a challenge. But with 10 minutes to go, fast tracks still. I'm wondering, will we click over to optimum in that time? I think we might do. And if you do, then 1 minute 40s, I think, are on a table. And look at that car, the huge boat of a Bentley sliding through Acqua Minerale. Really shows how
never
grip they've got.
seen that. Never seen a Bentley slide like that. That is not what a Bentley's for, Branchini, but it looked beautiful, didn't it?
I have done that before through Acqua Minerale. I can confirm it's a little bit scary in the Bentley. It's sort of like what would happen if you lost control of an oil tanker at high speed. Not if I've ever had the pleasure of doing that. Maybe I'll ask the Evergreen driver from the canal. But yeah, the Bentley can bite you there, and it's very fast. It's also a little bit unstable. And for Bianchi, it was actually a slightly quicker lap, despite the slide, but an invalid one. So he's got to go do that all again. The now current fastest time set by Pierce in that 131 with a 141.106.
I will admit, it is pretty anal, the track limits around here for ACC. There's some curbs that you can absolutely smash. That's an invalidation, by the way, for Magazi. There's no way that wasn't an invalidation. Some corners are very stingy, others aren't, and sometimes I get a bit mixed up on which ones are and aren't. And I think sometimes the drivers do as well. It's like playing pin the tail of the donkey a little bit. Sometimes you're sort of blindfolded, and every time you come back to a track, you have to re-gauge where the actual track limits are, and what you can and you cannot do. Pierce in the 131, currently fastest with a 41.106. They've reset the pit lane and come back out subsequently. Magazi has gone second, and due to his invalidated lap, he has returned to the pit lane as well. Samir Foch, 3.5 tenths off the overall pace, and Harry Conway, you just saw, I don't know if Conway invalidated or maybe he just gave up on those tires in that lap, and he has come down the pit lane. Well, Heilman has set a time. It's the 10th fastest time, nearly a second off of Pierce's pace. And his teammate Conway, of course, aforementioned, resetting to the pit lane. Pierce, Magazi, Foch, Conway, Branchini, your top five. LaValle, this man, Vining, Rogers, Sanchez, and Heilman, the top 10. Vining is down into the 8th position, and that's where he is going to stay. Does no better on that lap. Was actually 3/100 slower.
Yeah, the track limits here, I think some of the worst parts, and what drivers really want to get greedy at, and the part that, as a racing driver, that there's time here, you always want to do it, is that final chicane. The curbs look so wide, and if you're in a front engine car, especially that big AMG that we saw earlier, we briefly saw the 35 of Tyler Jason LaValle. That car can basically take the chicane like it's just a straight. There is no chicane there, you just go over it. But the track limits will punish you for doing that. They will also punish you in Aqua Minerale. The runoff to the left, a lot of drivers like to take that. You straighten out the exit, and it is a lot faster going up the hill. But a lot of times, the track limits will cut in and tell you, no, no, you are not allowed to do that. So yeah, every time you come here, you've got to try and relearn it. And I thought we might get this, Jesse. Track has now gone to optimum. Will the times start tumbling down? I think so.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a 40 is definitely on the cards here in the next few moments, and it's only going to get faster to the end. It's always a safe bet when you start on a fast racetrack that in a 15-minute session, with this many cars anyway, 27 plus. I'm actually not quite sure how many have shown up tonight. It's a lot. I think there may be 30 plus here, but just pro and high silver in split one. The second split, of course, is low silver and AM. Last season, I believe we had all three classes together, pro, silver, and AM. This season, not the case. Back to pro and high silver. One additional difference to the season. Can this man do something about Branchini's time? Fastest of all in the 106 Bentley, 40.758. Samir Foch returning to the Night Owl Series in his Ferrari, the Haas, but without the money. I like it. I like it. I'm happy to see just how serious they're taking their sim racing.
Oh yeah, Night Owls. We've always had some. We've had some great team names. Thinking of it over the years, haven't we? I think some of the. My favorite was it Chris Vining? I think actually it was another Ferrari that was the "Where will I bin it today?" And sadly for him on that championship, there was a lot of times where he did bin it. And Samir Foch, once again, not an improvement on that, a 41.7. But I think that was probably one of the warmer laps. I think those tires are still coming up.
Yes, indeed. As what can Giorgio Magazzi do in the 34 for CMR? Coming to the line, will go third at a 41.067. That would have been near as pole about a lap or so ago, as nearly a collision coming out of the pit lane. You're not invisible at that point. You've already passed the pit limit line, and near collision there for some of the cars, perhaps trying to maneuver and find some free space. Of course, pit out here, we saw that horrendous accident here a couple of seasons ago, back in the spring with Mike Noble in a different championship, but where just absolutely got clobbered coming out of pit road and was stuck, was like in the wall, was in the catch fence. It is just horrendous on all accounts, but that is also a consideration, at least for qualifying. That won't be a problem in the race because they don't have to stop, as the times do continue to get quicker for a lot of the teams. What's Harry Conway have? Nothing better there. Was a slow lap, several seconds off the fast pace of his lap. 41.541 is his quickest. He ran a 43 that time by. Nearly everybody out on the track except Stekecki in the 144, who has just ran a lap good enough for 6 and has reset for one final time. Everybody out there trying to chase down Branchini, who has a 3/10 lead on Samir Foch. That's amazing. That's an excellent pace.
Yeah, that 106 Bentley really flying along. I dare say though that they might have a little bit left. I've been glancing at their delta periodically, looking up who's green, who's not, and there is occasionally where the 106 of Branchetti, it does flash green. I think that driver's got something to give. But speaking of drivers to give, Pierce actually up on this lap might be just enough to squeak him onto the podium if he can hold it throughout the rest of the lap, especially through Aqua Minerale. It is some of the highest concentration points on this track. The car wants to go this way, that way, and you're just trying to fight it through.
Yeah, you're talking about the chicane earlier, and one of the things that I was told in my earlier years about racing at Imola was, that chicane, go slower than you think you need to go for that chicane. Don't even try to mount the curves. And ACC, of course, like you said, in a couple of cars, it is doable, especially if it's a front-engined car. I dare say don't do it in a mid-engine car most of the time, but um, it's not. There's something about it. It's not a particularly awkward chicane. It's just a very tight one, I reckon.
And the sausage curbs are so monumentally massive that they really will upset the car. You even in the front engine, which is more stable, you will kind of feel where you're momentarily, you've got two wheels in the air and the car is sort of shuffling itself to the outside line without any of your input. And in real life, watching the GT cars there, you would think that it's a thing that you can do in the game, but definitely not in real life. Nobody would chuck their GT car that hard over the curbs. And nope, the drivers do exactly the same line in real life. They try and straight line it as much as possible. As you can see, the sparks and bits of carbon fiber flying everywhere throughout the race. But that is the line that people will take. It's a very scary line, though. I will admit that.
Yeah, it is. It certainly can be. I mean, he who is brave wins, and Magazi very brave, coming to within a tenth of Brancini's time. Benjamin Heilman, who was for the longest time in the back half of the top 10, goes third quickest with about 2 tenths off the fastest time by the 106, as everybody is improving as you predicted.
Yeah, the times are coming down now. 9 seconds left only on the clock, though, so I don't think that Lavalli will manage to get to the line. This will be his last flying lap in that 35 Mercedes, a car that people say is horrendously overpowered here. It's the king, it's the yardstick, it is everything to be. What can it be for Tyler Just Lavalli? It bumps him up to 8th overall. A 141.130 will be his last time. Alex Rogers manages to squeak it to third with a 140.9, just getting into that 40 barrier. And as everyone else starts to slowly shuffle in, I think we're going to see a bit more of a shuffle up now. There's still a lot of people on the track with a few green sectors.
You happen to see what Alex Rogers' team name was, Ryan?
Actually, I did not. I'm gonna. Is this the thing I'm gonna have to press the rewind button on the old
It's
monitor? Yeah.
I'll tell you, it's Aston Rogers is his team name.
I do like this. I approve of this.
Franco Sanchez coming to the line, goes 14th quickest, fastest lap for them, a 41.469. Definite improvement as everybody continues to come to the line, finish up their lap. What is Ryan Woodwall? I haven't talked about him. Nothing's really changed for Spin Academy for Ryan Woodwall. Still a Lamborghini, still the 732. And of course, they will start right around the top 12, as long as IPEC and Flamger and maybe even Seb Bernier don't have anything to say about it. Seb Bernier's in the pits, so he certainly will not. What does David Bianchi have? David Bianchi has the fastest lap of all, a 40.692. A little bit of extra insurance for him, and that will conclude qualifying. The results confirmed on the timing sheet. These are the results. Brancini over Magazi, Rogers, and Conway, the first two rows. Heilman and Foch, then Pierce and Vining, Lavalli and Payne, the top 10, and the rest of your starters can be seen below. Tom Oddie and Sanchez, the top two in silver, with Flamger being third in that class. Folks, we're going to be right back here on RCI TV to bring you the Night Owl Season 6 opener. Going to take care of a few things on the back end. We'll be right with you. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. And we are back here at RCI TV for the Night Owl Season 6 opener here at Imola, 6:20 in the morning. Thanks for bearing with us. We are back with you for the duration of the race. Ryan Mawson with no mandatory pit stop. It's only something that the Night Owl veterans have dealt with one or two times in the whole history of Night Owl. How does that change your? I mean, it does change your race, but you know you're out there for a 1 hour sprint. How does that change your strategy? Is it go as hard as you can early? Do you try to save tires at the end? What would you do?
It is one of those $1 million questions, isn't it? I've met with so many drivers who will tell you every different answer under the sun. And I think it comes down to partly where are you in the field. If you are Brianchi in that 106, you want to get out from the pack early, but you don't want to burn your tires up because you have the track position, you have the advantage where anyone who wants your position has to attack you. They have to get around you. But a lot of the people in the back half of the field and the start of Silver, for Tom Otti and Sanchez, they're going to be boxed in by the traffic. They don't want that. It means that they can be passed very, very easily. So they're going to want to go full attack, try get that advantageous track position, and then sort of pace it out. Imola is a very, very easy circuit to grain your tires on, and then you will have pace problems for the rest of the race, especially at 16C. If you think about this track, you start off with a long, long, long straightaway. The tires will just completely cool off there. You have a couple of small corners, first and second chicane, come up the hill, and then you hit that left side through Acqua Minerale. You load all of the force of the car onto those two left side wheels. They will superheat, and that is where you can grain them. So I think if people are going to play the really long game, I would see it as advantageous to heat the car up slowly, get your pace up, and then you keep at that pace for the whole race. But I also wouldn't put it past people like Magazi in the 34, might just try and blast past the 106 immediately at the start, accept a little bit of graining, but get that all-important track position.
Yeah, it certainly is a consideration you have to make. We thought the Bentleys were going to be formidable tonight. Well, they have locked out the front row. It took them all qualifying to do so, but they have done that. And what about the other teammates, the two Porsches on, well, they're actually on the second and third row as well. And then a whole host of Ferraris with Fosh, Vining, and Pierce. It's crazy. With about 5 minutes to play, Pierce looked like he was going to be on pole, ends up eighth, just barely inside the top 10. So incredible stuff. I wonder what Max Payne is thinking in the GTR, qualified inside the top 10. And I wonder what Vining's thinking in his Ferrari as well. Not seeing a GTR on the grid, not being in that car. And I'd love to pick his brain at some point and just ask of all the cars to upgrade to, why specifically the Ferrari? Certainly probably has an affinity for it, and why not? Seventh place in quali, all looking good. It is a tale of the usual suspects up front early, you have to admit.
Yeah, but I mean, do you really expect anything else when you put the usual suspects in the usual cars? You're always going to get some quite good racing, though. I will say that, even if it's some we keep mentioning the usual names up front, it's never over until it's over in Night Owl. We've seen it before where you think, oh, this person will simply run away with the championship. They are unbeatable in this car, and we've had problems. They've had DNFs. We've had all sorts of drama here at Night Owl. So it's never over until it's over. And speaking of things over and beginning, let's go for the first round of season 6 of Night Owl at Imola. 16 degrees with the sun setting, 34 cars on the track waiting for the checkered flag.
Well, they're going to see the green. The lights are going to go out, and they are 2 by 2. As far as the eye can see around the corner, there are 34 plus cars. one of which, the 577, will be starting from the pit lane, which makes him the only smart driver in the entire field. That is the safest place to start. Everyone stacking up 2x2, a big wide front straightaway here at Imola, just what you want, but it will run down into a tight turn 2 where that could be drama and trouble corner. The green flag is out and the lights are off as it's a clean getaway for Branchitti and Magazi, but look behind them. Rogers, Conway, and Heilman are not willing to set by as they're 2x2 clear up front, but 2x2 from third on back is a pretty excellent start. Minor fender benders, but other than that, I think most of them got away with it.
A little bit of tapping here and there, a bit of rubbing, but that is kind of to be expected at Imola. The curbs here are very hard, and there's some contact up ahead. That is the GTR fishtailing and taking off one of the McLarens. So, as we said,
that so much worse.
Commentator's curse. What did we say? We said it was clean. No. We need to remember, Jesse. We've had a little bit of a break. We must not use our great power.
Yes, indeed.
We must rein in this power, you see. But continuing back to that, the other thing that we didn't mention as well, very few Audis this season. There's normally had quite a little bit more Audis, but we've only got 3. And it's all kicking off in Aqua Minerale.
That was Ryan Renoir who had to hit the eject button there in Aqua Minerale to not run into the back of Pierce and Vining. I'm sure Pierce and Vining appreciate that. I'm also sure Renoir is cursing to himself for having to even take that evasive action. He may have even picked up a track cut for that, though I'm not entirely sure. Of course, there is a pit window for this race, but no required pit stop. You're not going to see any, well, I say things like this, but you're not going to see anyone in contention tonight pit is what I should say. That's not what I was going to say, but that's what I should say. Samir Foch in the 4th place position in the Haas, but without the money team, trying to get around Harry Conway. He's going to look around the outside. If he can hang here, he might have a chance, but he can't. Just a little bit of a touch, though, between him and Conway, and that's not entirely what you want to do early into a season. Backs away from it, though. No harm, no foul as Conway gets away. But look at Alex Rogers in the 119 behind, as this is definitely a 3-way battle. Getting a little bit loose there and actually running out of track room. Harry Conway, but covers the inside. Should be okay.
The Triple Eight has got to play this incredibly carefully, though. Every time that he does attack Conway, you can see Alex Rogers in the 119 there, that Aston Martin. He will take that position away very easily. Every single time Conway is forcing him to go around the outside, Alex Rogers can stick his nose up the inside and possibly get the position. For Samir Foch's Triple Eight, he really needs to get such a better run. The Porsche struggles in a straight line, and we know this, but through the corners and in the braking zones, it's probably one of the most unbeatable cars, really. You can try all you want, but if that driver knows how to drive that Porsche, which I'm pretty sure Conway does, you're not really going to be going around the outside of them.
Well, one other thing that we have to mention is what happened to Benjamin Heilman. He got shuffled out in the 796. He's down in 8th place. I saw that back where it was Stakecki and IPEC, and I was like, wait a minute, 796 started inside the top 5. Well, they have been shuffled all the way back, and there of course was contact, and it was minor contact, but that might have been the root cause that stacked them all up. But realistically, all told, Boston, I think the stewards, which by the way, of course, returning for season 6, live stewarding here at Night Owl, a big thank you to all of them, and new head steward for the day, Phil Roberts. So welcome in there, as one car has gone completely off the track in front there, and perhaps another one, or perhaps that is the same car. Nope, that is the same car, just taking extreme evasive action. You know, they do run rally races here in Italy, but not specifically at Imola. I think they're in the wrong discipline.
And keep trying to go too wide through Villeneuve chicane there. I mean, yeah, what a race to bring in our new head steward. He will have to he'll have to get used to having eyes in the back of his head everywhere. You can't take your eye off racing drivers for a second. And even after we had the first season where we announced live stewarding, And we told them that, you're going to have to be on your best behavior, lads. You're being watched now. You can't get away with the naughty naughties. Well, racing drivers are racing drivers, and it will always happen. So, poor stewards are going to have a bit of a fun tonight with some of the contacts we've seen already going on. But look at this. I mean, cars, as far as the eye can see, we're going to need a wider angle lens on some of these cameras to get everyone in shot. It is just a madhouse in the bottom half of the field.
I tell you one thing that I'm surprised at, Seb Brunier in the pro class. I'm not entirely sure if that was a Seb Brunier choice or an RCI choice, but I'd be curious to know what Seb thinks about that, about running in the pro class. Of course, Seb Brunier was a Night Owl season champion in his own right, but he's certainly hounding the back of Tom Oddie here for the 16th place. And I think he might have him around the outside. And in fact, he does, as Oddie doesn't really have anything to challenge with there. That is the Porsche straight line that we're talking about earlier. Mawson was alluding to it not being a great car in a straight line, and there you have it, the Macca absolutely eating it for lunch there, as everybody's still very close here back in the field. And, this has been a pretty perfect race to have a new head steward. It hasn't been too busy. It's busy enough, but there hasn't been any major calamities. So I should learn not to say things.
Look what you have done, Jesse. Look what you have done to poor Flamger as well. He's facing the wrong way. This poor chap. Well, everyone gets back going in there. As we mentioned it, we hadn't had many calamities. What actually happened here? Turning in, and yeah, touching the back of the McLaren. Everyone goes round. And that's probably one of the worst parts, to have a yellow flag, because that hairpin back is completely blind. If you're a driver coming around that, you don't know what's happening until basically you have a car in your windscreen.
I know you can't see that, or you can't see into the stewards, or excuse me, into the commentator's box, but I just sat there for 15 seconds having a bit of a pout, and I should learn. I can't say things like that. My dearest, my deepest apologies to Timothy Flamger and the like. What I was saying was, it's actually been a fairly quiet race for the stewards so far, and they could so very much enjoy that, and very much deserved. It's been one thing after another in recent weeks, and we were at Alton Park yesterday, Mawson, as you would have known, Alton Park never goes to plan. They had a lot to get through, but other than that, there were a couple of things that I thought that they may look into, and in fact they are doing. But that's the classic, though. Two into one doesn't go, is what happened there.
Yes, after Alton Park, do we have to buy them some new pens again? We're spending all of our money on the stewards here. Look, they've got new pens. We even got them some paper. But I did notice in the chat as well, someone has pointed out, is that a Nissan? Yes, you are correct. We do have one Nissan in this championship this year. And well, what a car to bring along. Not a car that we really see anymore, but always love to see them on track for the size of this. And speaking of 2 into 1, the two mid-engine cars are battling. Just about. Ryan Renoir escaping that, to having to once again hit the eject button.
Look at this!
And well, can you do you want another coat of paint on the rear bumper of Renoir's car? I think if he had done, they might have touched there.
Well, I think Ryan Renoir, I think he's been doing a lot in the opening laps here, reacting to some of the movements of the other drivers. He ran wide in Aqua Minerale. He ran wide in the chicane, and I'm not sure it was a lack of control on Spin Academy's part. I think that was more to do with self-preservation. Renoir has had, in Night Owl, just the worst luck in the past couple of seasons pertaining to other cars. So trying to stay out of it, and to his credit, almost inside the top 10. He's got IPEC in front of him. So it seems to all be going to plan for Renoir right now, despite the fact that he's been off the track a few times. I feel like that's more self-preservation than anything else. Meanwhile, up front, Brancini has just the biggest lead, 3.7 seconds over Magazi, and he's done that in just 5 laps.
Yeah, and Magazi is, one of the more common names that we've seen, especially around Night Owl, that we've always said was, such a quick driver. And yeah, Brancini just taking it and going. What we'll have to watch though is the pace that Brancini is doing. Could he possibly be cooking the tires? Could Magazi be sort of holding on to keep a bit more rubber on for when the fuel load has gone down? Because Magazi is also in a bit of a gap of his own. He's another 3.2 seconds back from Conway in that 28. Then the field of madness starts to happen. But I think the two Bentley drivers are sort of just pacing themselves at the minute.
Yeah, I wonder. That's why I posed that question to you really early, Ryan. Was I was wondering what the strategy would be. I think for Brancini, it's run away and hide because we know that Magazi had just about the same pace Brancini had. He was only off by a tenth, and he's losing several tenths a sector as Alex Rogers takes a not advantageous and slightly adventurous line through that section in the Aston Rogers 119.
And the Aston is it's another one of those cars as well that you would think would be one of the greats here. I think what holds this car back ever so slightly is just that the turbo lag, which it is so notorious for. And here we go. I expect a bit of a piece of paperwork coming through on our desk soon, as we've been handed our first 15 second for the 35 of all drivers. And the
Uh,
131. Ooh, just
folks, if you've never raced at Imola, perhaps maybe you're watching this and you're like, why do they react every time somebody goes through Aqua Minerale? Well, there's a reason for that. That corner hates race cars. It has done ever since the reconfigure, and it's a 5-story building difference from the top of that corner to the bottom, and it's an off-camber double apex, if you will, and then it's a blind left-hander up the hill, and you take it at exceedingly high speed for what you would assume you would take a corner of that magnitude, and it does something to your car. You can set the car up for the rest of the track, but you'll get it wrong in Aqua Minerale. You just will. And paper confirmed being handed to me by Glenn tonight. Incident in qualifying involving the 32, a warning for use of in-game chat. That was during qualifying. And in the racing incident between the 888 and the 28, minor contact, and 15-second penalty for car 35 for missing the braking point and forcing the 56 to release brakes and avoid taking out the 19. And though that is the only penalty so far, but I imagine, Mawson, that's not going to be the last, as I see them quite busy.
Yeah, I think looking over into the steward's box, there's going to be quite a few more coming. We can see the monitors being, rewound and fast forwarded and checking that. And what we did tell all the drivers is that incidents like this will occur, and it's not really how you want to start off your season. We've said it before, haven't we? Where if a driver can pull out such a big points lead early in the season, it is very hard to catch that back up, towards the end of the season. Not saying it's impossible, just seeing that it is mathematically a lot harder to do so.
Yeah, I'm afraid to say I've been on both ends of that. And I tell you what, I definitely prefer to have a quiet and solid first round than to have a disaster. There's nothing quite like starting off the season in a hole, and you just spend the rest of the season trying to dig yourself out of said hole, and it's not a happy feeling. But you get a decent result as Ryan Renoir continues to battle Kierton in the 38 Honda. And it looks like Kierton will get that position. So Olivier up one position into the top 12. But yeah, you just never want to start off a season on the back foot. And, well, unfortunately, some drivers have already done that a bit. Oh, no! Off the track there. Who was that? Was that the 35? No.
No, I think that's the 56. That's Trison. Is that what that be pronounced? I think it is. Yep, it's the red The red Ferrari V2. I mean, it does what it says on the tin. It is a red Ferrari. So yes, them being shuffled back now into the 16th position. And what they are in silver? I believe they are second in silver. I think that's the number 6 is
They
actually
are second in
leading.
silver. Yeah,
Yeah, the
Ben
Ben
Norton leading
Norton.
in silver. Do you know what this paint job on Sebastian's car reminds me of?
The old Ferrari Formula One car.
No, it reminds me of that one paint job in I don't remember which truck simulator it's in, but it's in one of the truck simulators. It was a reward paint job you got for completing one of the World of Trucks objectives. It looks exactly like that with the sort of geometric shapes on it.
Yeah. I think there's a couple of liveries that remind me of various race cars, and I mean, for this man, for Benjamin Heilman, every time that I see it, I just think that I need to go and get some more Tic Tacs.
Carshu in chat's asking, are there any corners like Aqua Minerale on other tracks? Now there isn't. Aqua Minerale is very much Imola in a nutshell. I can equate it to some other corners. Oh no!
Oh,
Massive incident there. Benjamin Heilman, and was that Pierce in the 131? No, that wasn't Pierce.
That was
Which
Vining.
Ferrari? Was that Vining? That was
Yeah,
Vining. You're right. The 113 just had a massive off. What caused that?
There was that inner curb look. You saw the front and the back of the car bump over. Obviously, it snapped on him, and Benjamin Heilman, just the innocent bystander there. Vining had lost control of that car, and the poor Porsche just happened to be in the vicinity. Took a Ferrari to the door. Hopefully, that has not really affected, or it will affected the handling of the car a little bit, but at least side damage is slightly better than front damage. But for Vining now, that car very much ailing. You can see him now dropping places. There goes Seb Brunier as well in the 777.
Well, Seb Bruni will be happy about that because that's a place in the pro class. And of course, Vining has a 5-second penalty that we haven't named as of yet. Speaking of which, 5-second penalty for car 113 for avoidable contact with the 796. Racing incident between the 966, the 911, the 732, and the 35. Multiple contacts after the 966 reacted to an incident. Nobody was at fault. No further action between the 911 and the 444 for minor contact, and a racing incident between the 911 and the 6. That whole incident with Vining and Heilman, I think every single one of them were innocent in that. Just absolute passengers. A little bit of too much curb in a mid-engine car for Vining, and well, that's how quickly it can come away from you.
Yeah, and looking at Heilman's car as well, when they passed the pit straight and past our comms box, a lot of damage on the right side of that car, and actually a little bit on the front as well. So it was an incredibly hard hit, as sort of it shoved the Ferrari back off into the gravel. So well, my fingers are crossed for the 796, but the 144 I think is now looking even more menacing in the rear view, and he's now got an ailed Porsche in front of him to attack.
Doesn't make your day better, does it at all? Whenever you're having to drive wounded, as some of the cars are doing. But the race will go on, and of course, no pit stop here tonight. Over the season, you can expect a fuel-only stop, tire changes, and of course, 2 stops required in the 60-minute races. But tonight, there was no stop. Of course, that was announced just before the race server went live this evening, and that will be constant throughout the season. We run the first half of the season, Mollison, and the beginning of October, we have the bye week in the middle of the season for EWC that also runs on Saturdays. And then we finish up the rest of the schedule. I was looking at some of the drivers and looking at the track list, as well as the car selection. And honestly, I imagine no matter what happens to Heilman here today, I think he's going to be formidable in some of the courses. And the Bentleys up front, you mentioned it before we went live tonight. They look strong, and I don't think that that's going to go away when we leave Italy tonight.
No, the Bentley is quite a good all-rounder. It has quite good pace anywhere you take it. There's a couple of tracks where you might be edged out by some of the other cars, but realistically, it is a very good overall car. But yeah, Harman the Porsche, one to watch. Obviously, tonight struggling a little bit, but I mean, I think I would be struggling too if I'd just taken a Ferrari to the door. Kind of like a Skyrim joke in there somewhere. Instead of taking an arrow to the knee, I took a Ferrari to the door.
Well, I will tell you, I just looked back at that personally, and that was more significant contact than I initially thought it was. As Jacob Blizzard here for Pinhead 69, running defensively, but it may not matter, as position was ceded by himself. John Arasser in the 699 getting the position.
And when I saw this car originally as well, I had to actually sort of quickly double check the entry list because I thought that we had Mike Jones here today. I saw that car go by the window and I quickly had to look down and look through the driver list and thinking, Mike? But then I realized it can't be Mike. It doesn't have gold wheels.
Yes, Mike Jones, no relation to the Grammy Award-winning artist, but Mike Jones slaps regardless, and he does love his purple, orange, and gold, but of course, no relation. Mike Jones is racing tonight, just in the lower split.
Yeah, so we'll have to go and well afterwards. I'm sure we can talk to him about his gold wheels. We can we can say that, don't worry, in spirit you are represented in the higher split by a fellow purple McLaren.
Just going back to Karju's question real quick from chat. Of course, we are reading chat as we always are here on RCI TV. They were asking if there's any other tracks that have a corner like Acqua Minerale, and I was just thinking for the past 5 minutes, I don't think there is. There are tracks that have similar compositions, but they don't have the elevation change. So realistically, they're not the same. It's very unique in its construction.
Oh yeah, or the tracks that do have similar corners, as from a driving perspective, as a driver, you don't take them the same. So there are corners with significant elevation changes. I mean, the corkscrew comes to mind, and like going up Eau Rouge Radion, for example. But Eau Rouge Radion is a very swooping, gentle curve, but you're fighting positive forces there. It's pressing the car into the ground. Corkscrew, it makes the car very floaty, and that's you can straight line it. Acqua Minerale is a really hard load up to the left side of the car, and the curbs want to throw you off, and it's blind, and when you go back uphill there is a slight bump which can unsettle the car. The only curb that I can think is anywhere near Acqua Minerale, but it doesn't have as a severe elevation change, is Catalunya. The corner before you go up the hill, it sort of doubles back on itself. There's what I class as a mini chicane, but it doesn't have the extreme elevation change that Acqua Minerale does. That's the only corner I can think on our entire calendar that is anywhere near the same. You can have great elevation changes, you can have corners that require great precision, but Acqua Minerale takes that and just combines everything.
The only track that has ever given me the same sensation as Acqua Minerale has is Macau. And it's not a fair comparison. It has elevation change. The corner is quite a bit different, and it's also a lot narrower as well. But it gives you that same sensation in a mid-engine car that you may not be pointing in the correct direction because of the very sudden change of direction and elevation. We have had a few other penalties come out. 15-second penalty for car 969. Closes off the number 17, leaving no room, taking out both cars, including the 17, which was forced to retire. So 15 seconds for 696. No further action for minor contact between the 69 and the 777. Warning for car 32 dive bombing the 69 and causing contact. No further action between the 32 and the 699. And 5-second penalty for car 19 for taking out the 39.
And there you go. We said that this would happen, didn't we? The pencils are coming out now, and the drivers are getting the words over the radio. But the field is starting to slowly spread itself out. We're getting a few little trains as IPEC in the background is very much testing the limits of the track at the top of the hill there. I wanted to check that over there was a track limit. I think I can confirm that it is.
Yeah, speaking of track limits, Tom Bryant in the steward's box, as he so often is, confirming that the 732 has a drive-through penalty, but of course that is ACC track limits and not RCI steward related. So we haven't made it halfway yet, and we've already had our first drive-through for track limits assigned by ACC. That doesn't bode well for some of these other guys that certainly have been off track early.
No, and we said that. I think that Aqua Minerale is going to be a problem, and the final chicane. And speaking of things that it could be all over, looking down the straight there, it might be all over for Benjamin Heilman. That Audi was just looking ferocious. But for Brancini, I mean, look at this man. He's pulled out an 8-second lead already in 15 laps. Samir Foch is actually has taken over the place of Conway into third position, and he looks like he's catching Magazi slightly. 1.8 at the last timing mark. Have to keep an eye on that. Magazi looking like he was unchallenged for a while. Might have that Ferrari knocking on his door soon.
Might as well do. Carter continuing the previous conversation. He wonders, is the SS in Watkins Glen similar to Aqua? Not really, because it is switchback corners, and you kind of have to have faith that your car is going to turn because you can't see where you're going. But it is actually, however, similar to the boot at Watkins Glen, because there is dramatic elevation change and a very tight corner that is downhill. So rather besides, it is interesting. Solberg has a question, I think, specifically for you, Ryan Mawson in chat. Is a 206.7 a good lap at Silverstone in the wet? He promises he's asking for a friend.
Ah, yes, the good old friend. Well, I mean, what would we say is some of the really, really fast guys can pull, 56s, 55s around Silverstone in the dry, and I always add around about 10 seconds in the wet. I'd say it's a fairly good time. I actually haven't been driving, and here we go with the switchback. Jason Lavallee avoiding the rejoining 113 of Vining. That car is really not looking happy, is it, of Chris Vining? It's just dropping more and more lap time, and the 56 and the 35 managing to scuttle around him.
Scuttle is a good way of putting it. Sebastian trying to stay in front of Lavallee now. Lavallee and Vining are not even the caboose on the Pro Series cars, but they are certainly the ones that have the biggest penalties at this time, 15 and 5 respectively. Meanwhile, up front, Samir Foch is catching second place, and Rogers is also catching Foch. So for what it's worth, Brancini up front has grown that lead to 8.3 seconds now. Magazi might be ailing ever so slightly. That is Samir Foch and Alex Rogers in your picture. Rogers always does this. That car, he's decent, and then it comes alive at some point in the race. How many times have we seen Rogers make late race passes? Not that it's too late. We are coming up to the halfway point, of course, but Rogers is always one of those dependable drivers that seems to be coming through the field at the right time.
Yeah, I think he picks his moments very carefully, and that's what we see a lot of times from Rogers is that he's not a super aggressive early morning or early part of the race. If a position presents itself, he will take it. But otherwise, we've seen this man, lap for quite a long time behind drivers. And then out of nowhere, he will make a move. And I think that would be the more scary part. If you're, Samir Foch in front, when you've got the 119 behind you, but he's not making any kind of attempt to pass you, he's not making any moves. You just know that he's sitting, he's plotting, he's watching where you are weak, where his car is strong, and then suddenly you are going to be overtaken and left in the dust before you can blink.
Yeah, that's Alex Rogers in a nutshell, and loyal to this Aston as well. It's so much so that it's become part of his team name, the Aston Rogers team. And it is seeing Chris Vining in anything other than a Ferrari or GTR is jarring, which Vining has done because Vining's entered championships where neither one of those cars were applicable. But seeing them out of that car would be like seeing this man, Benjamin Heilman, in something that was not a Porsche. Speaking of which, Heilman had that damage. Oh, severe, actually. You can see it on that camera really well as it's about to go 7 a.m. here at Imola. But you can see the left side of that car is crunched up, but still hounding the back of IPEC here.
Yeah, just about managing. I think the problem that he's got now is with the damage. You can see as well there's a tiny bit of splitter damage. There's quite a few scrapes on the front of it. And I think that's affecting the already poor top speed. So in a straight line, he might be able to muscle the car through the corners and vaguely keep with people. But in a straight line now, that poor Porsche is just being robbed of, whole tenths of a second down the straight. And speaking of tenths of a second, here comes the great big brute power of the AMG. A car that you also can't really hold back in a straight line. There's got like a nuclear reactor under the bonnet of that car.
Just not fair in a straight line, that AMG. As speaking of the 35, being told by the stewards because of the 32, because of the pre-race warning for the 32 of using in-game chat and the subsequent warning on lap 3 for his involvement in a dive bomb incident, 2 warnings equal a 5-second penalty in RCI. So he will be receiving a 5-second penalty, will the 32, for accumulating multiple warnings in the race. So that's unfortunate. They using the game chat in quali. I don't think we've ever had that before. They're using the game chat later, leading to a bigger penalty. And I bet he wishes he wouldn't have done that now.
Yeah, well, there you go. I mean, we have a rule for everything, because if you leave it out, someone will do it. So yes, being naughty in qualifying, and then actually being naughty in the race has net them a position. In 35, Tyler Jason the Valley coming up against Vining, and we once again, it says we've seen that 113 Ailing still fighting it, but it's kind of all over now. The 35 just about slots in front, with a coat of paint to spare. And here we go in the straight line again. Even though the 113 is in the tow, in the slipstream, the Ferrari is no slouch. There's just nothing really that he can do.
Just past the halfway point here in the Night Owl Season 6 opener from Imola, the Pro and High Silver Split coming at you wherever you are in the world. We hope that you are having a fantastic Saturday evening. We hope you're well. And we thank you for spending a little bit of your Saturday night with us here at RCI TV. We appreciate that. And while you're here, why not like, subscribe, hit the bell for more GT racing action. Of course, we'll be back with you on Thursday live for another round of the Thursday GT4 Champ. And I'll be back with you on Friday for the continuation of the Friday Endurance Championship. And we'll be here next Saturday, the same place, same time, Ryan Mawson and myself, to bring you round 2 that we cannot wait to bring you, because certainly I feel like this race has given us more questions than answers. Who might end up on top in a week from now? I guess you're just going to have to tune in to find out. And of course, a big thank you to all of our partners that make this race and every race possible. Race Department, AK Informatica, Driver 61, Fanatec, and Sim Racing GT. You get a discount off your driver coaching at Driver 61 by using our discount code. More information in the description. You can also use our referral link on Fanatec. It doesn't cost you anything, but it tells them that we sent you, and we would appreciate it if you did. And of course, big thank you to all of them, and thank you as well as getting a bit dicey out there, Mawson.
Yeah, very much getting a bit dicey. And if you use that, the driver 61 coaching link, and you get a bit of a money off, you can join our Discord and actually get involved in some of this racing. You don't have to sit and watch
Oh,
it. You could always do some more people in Night Owl. It's where all the cool kids hang out. It's where me and Jesse are. So you want to come and give us a bit more action. It's what you want to do, ladies and gentlemen. Write that down.
but so here's the thing: Ryan Mawson is a lead commentator now, and it just so happens that we continue to work on Night Owl together instead of being split up on other projects. And Olivier
Oh.
Kierton going completely off there, and this incident wasn't over as they had to catch the car a third time. But I like that. See, that's the thing. Mawson has a great point. Wouldn't you want to be where we are? And also, of course, we have seasons that seemingly are starting every couple of weeks. I know that's not true, but it definitely seems like that. And you're more than welcome to get involved. We have splits for you. It doesn't matter if you're a pro or you just got your first wheel. Heck, I mean, we have even some drivers that use controller. It's not impossible. One of the most crazy things, Mawson, I think you and I ever called in our broadcasting career, we saw a controller user win a pro race.
Yep. And it was for the longest time that we didn't even realize. It was only when we went on board with this driver that we realized it, and then it just made it that it was that extra sort of wow. There's all these people who have got the wheels, the setup, the everything, and this man has practiced and refined his art on the controller. It kind of shows though that sometimes you can the old saying of all the gear and no idea can come into play. It doesn't matter, what you've got; it's what you know. I mean, some of the crazy fast people for hot lapping have been set, on G29s. It's base model engineering.
Look, I'll put it to you this way: back in Jesse Lee's day, when everything was black and white, we didn't even force feedback wasn't even a thing, and
Oh no.
I mean it was actually favorable at that point to use a controller. And I mean, Super GT, I talk about him occasionally, how he played Gran Turismo, still does, and for the longest time, up until a few years ago, exclusively used a PlayStation controller, and he could beat people. He beat me with a controller, and I like that. I like that phrase, "all the gear and no idea." I like that, but it doesn't matter. And if you're good, you're good, and it's just amazing to see. There's so many different setups. There's people that have full rigs. Somebody, is it Harry Conway? I didn't realize this up until recently. He won an RCI championship and many other championships outside of RCI. I'm sure at some point in his career. But he used to sit at a desk with a desk lamp. He only recently, I'm pretty sure, upgraded to some sort of racing seat and rig. That's absolutely incredible stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've known one of the names that is also around RCI, which we've talked about before, John Grant Smith. So that man, when I first met him, and he was over in CHSR, Chris Hayes sort of community, he had I think it was a Club Sport. No, it was a CSL, I believe. It was a CSL wheel, desk clamped on, and he had two shoes in his wheelie chair so that when he braked, it would not slide back. This man now has won the Hungaro ring of SRO America Esports, and he finished, I think, 11th in the SRO Esports Europe at Masano. So he's pretty rapid. But this man, like I said, used to drive on a desk lamp. It was when as well when we used to sort of make a bit of a joke and that this guy cannot even drive yet, and yeah, he would completely thrash me and everyone else who ever doubted him. So hats off to that man.
Yes, indeed. I have been texted. I have been texted
Uh-oh.
by Tom Bryant,
Uh-oh.
and well, no, this is actually a good one. He says that they are all caught up on stewarding decisions, and he also remarks that it has been a heck of a lot cleaner and better racing than it was during the summer series. I think we kind of assumed as much, considering it has been relatively calm and there's been quite a bit of passing, but it's been done respectfully. And Tom and the stewarding team has noticed that as well. So they're all caught up. They are no longer going. It doesn't look like at this stage that they're going to have to stay after class. They have had to do that, folks. For those of you that may be new, for several times this past month, 2 or 3 times at least, where they were here an hour post race dealing with incidents. Unsung heroes of sim racing are the stewards. I know most people, when they talk about stewards, they're talking about them in a negative light, but, well, not all heroes wear capes, is where I'm going with this.
Yeah, they give up their precious evenings for your enjoyment. And generally, your enjoyment, if they are talking about you, has probably involved, bonking someone else off the track. I think, as Mike Jones would classify, he classifies things as a bonk, if I'm correct. So
He does do that.
if you've bonked someone off the track, then yes, you shall be talked about at the great circle table of stewarding.
I can tell you something too, Mawson. Ryan Gill was in the box with me last night, and I think Mike Jones is getting to him because he started saying bonk as well. I told you that the stewards were done, and they are done. I can confirm that, and these are the final penalties before they said that. 5-second penalty for car 577 for causing avoidable contact, goes off on their own, rejoins, and then runs wide into the 706. I had to reread that. So, causing avoidable contact, 5-second penalty for the 577. Warning for car 113, modulating brakes to try and overtake, resulting in avoidable contact with the 777. Second warning, upgraded to a 5-second penalty for the 113. Warning for car 56 for a dive bomb with contact, but the position was returned. And 5 seconds for car 69 for an overtake with contact on the 913. And with that, they are called up, and they're actually joining us in chat. Hello, stewards. Hello, Alpha and Like. Glad that you are able to join us on your Saturday evening, just like everybody else. As it's been a pretty much by the books race, though, hasn't it?
So far, yeah, we've had the early race dramas and the mad pack that is Imola, and now we've kind of got the spread out playing the train and the waiting game Imola. But for Branchetti, it is the playing the I'm going to run away with my Bentley and never slow down and make Ryan look like he's an idiot because the pace has not dropped off game.
I was certain as well that there would be some that went a little bit too hard, maybe did something to the tires. You get to this point, though, it is still around that time. I often see right around 15 minutes to go in a 1 hour race, things can happen, though, even still for Branchini in the Omega E-Racing Team 106 Bentley, they have 11.5-second lead. So even if something were to happen, as long as they kept it on the island, I don't think they're in too much danger. I'll tell you who is in danger. Second, third, and fourth. They're all coming closer together. And speaking of coming closer together, this battle for 16th, Sebastian Arasser and Walchik here, all together for silver. And this is for the final podium spot in that class. Oh my goodness, way
Absolutely.
off was the 56.
Everyone is trying to find the limits of track and limits of adhesion. The 56 still trying it, but these guys, yeah, are like you said, around about the 15-minute mark is kind of it's when it clicks in the driver's head. In it, you've done most of the race. You've kind of got it if you've been following this driver in this pack for so long. 15 minutes is essentially qualifying in your head now. It's qualifying. You are pushing. You have that less the last sort of go, because at least I've had this before, and this thought has run through my mind before. When it's this low on the time, what you're thinking is, if I get round them, can I hold them off? Would they catch me in a qualifying setting? And if the answer is no, then get round them. That's at least what I think.
When am I going to have you on my team? We should do a race together, and I want you to be the engineer.
Oh God. As long as you'll find us, ladies and gentlemen, upside down in the gravel trap at Alton Park, I'm sure. Coming soon to
Oh,
you.
don't be silly. Don't be silly. I'm just slow. I don't wreck the car. Samir Foch has continuously been closing in on Magazi. Rogers was fairly close to him, but I suspect he's had to defend a little bit from Harry Conway, who's behind him. So a battle for second and a battle for fourth. And the battle is on for second and third in silver. We haven't talked at all about Ben Norton and his number 6 McLaren, but he has had just about. This is the first time we've seen the number 6, and well, that's because they have had a by the book race themselves. They've not put themselves in too much harm outside the initial start where there were cars backwards in front of Ben Norton, but other than that, they have sort of just been all by their lonesome. And is that the 777 of Seb Brunier who's gotten by? No, that is not Seb Brunier in front of them, I don't think.
I think that is one of the lapped cars.
Is that Anderson, perhaps? Yeah, it was.
I believe
But,
Seb Brunier is somewhere in the background. I think I just spied him on like the very edge of the camera. We've got a bit of a McLaren train.
The silver McLaren threw me off there a little bit, but Ben Norton has just ran a perfect race. If you want to, we talk about starting off your championship on the right foot, doing the right things, going through the motions, and getting out of here with a good result, setting up yourself for success for the 6 races to follow. Ben Norton, to this point, knock on wood, with 12 and a half to go, has done exactly that. So all credit to them, as the rest of the silver class are fighting themselves. Matter of fact, I've just noticed second all the way back through 6th in the silver class, or excuse me, all the way second through 5th rather, are all nose to tail, and that will do Ben Norton just fine, who is off on his own. Harry Conway isn't really on his own. I mentioned earlier he was trying to chase down Alex Rogers, and he is doing that here.
Yeah, slowly but surely. He has been reeling him in. And the other thing as well that I've noticed, Samir Foch and Magazi, that gap keeps yo-yoing it around. Like, for example, last lap, Foch pulled in half a second there. You know, quite the gap. But then it's been where Magazi has pulled out maybe 0.2. I think both drivers might be struggling with a bit of tyre wear. And speaking of someone who's had a bit of tyre wear and not the race that they want, and it's gone.
Mentioned earlier that Chris Vining often has these races of brilliance, and then also has races where it just seems unfair. Well, a drive-through penalty for track limits assigned by ACC. So that's our second drive-through for track limits victim today.
What was it? Was it Spa, if I remember, Jesse, where we pretty much, poor Chris Vining had an almost identical race. He did very well at the start, got collected by something that wasn't his fault, had a crash up Eau Rouge, and then got a drive through, and that was that.
Yeah, racing's very fickle. I've likened it to gambling. some of the time. It's one of those things. It's like you're in control, but you never are quite sure what you're going to get because you're not the only one out on the track. Ben Norton, by the way, is at the front of his class, but he's not settled with that. Olivier Kierton in the 38 Honda ailing here in the dying embers of the race, and Norton would like to get around him because if Norton can get around Kierton, it's not out of the question that he could catch Heilman for 10th. Not that that pays any points, because it doesn't. They're all racing for class, but that'll do a lot for the old pride.
Yeah, top 10 in an RCI event is nothing to shake a stick at, especially when, you know, this is a silver driver. And like I said, we haven't really talked much about Ben Norton. That's because we haven't had to talk about him. Sometimes that's sort of a blessing in disguise. You think that, you know, you didn't have much action in the race. I'd be quite happy if it was the opening round and, you know, you've had that great start. The rest of the silver field is still, you know, they're fighting tooth and nail, as kind of we always see the silver pack do. They never really seem to space themselves out. It's always go, go, go in the silver field. But do we think we got 9 minutes left, and the Honda does look at the moment, does look the slower car of these two?
Yeah, if I'm Olivier, if I'm Heilman as well, I probably, you're not losing points if you let them go. It might be more advantageous for you to do that because Ben, of course, in the silver class, and in fact, that is what almost happens there. Now we'll see if Olivier lets them go. I mean, I don't think they're going to have too much of a choice. Ben's just going to shoot by them. A little bit of a mistake in Aqua Minerale, and around goes Ben Norton up into 11th place. And dare I say, if he can clear the lap traffic, that is the Mint Porsche up in front of him. I reckon he could get there in 8.5 minutes, considering his pace. Meanwhile, by the way, Samir Foch is on the back of the second place driver, Tyler Jason LaValle, for 14th, and Sebastian behind. Of course, this is more racing that is not for position in class, at least behind him anyway. The position in front of him, LaValle could pass Brunier, but it probably wouldn't matter too much because LaValle's 15-second penalty. Meanwhile, of course, they are battling for second as well. And this is Branchini. Omega E-Lacing. Yeah, we talked a lot about Ben Norton just now, having a race where we don't talk about them much, which, folks, if you are new to RCI, it's probably best that we don't talk about you. We have a long history of talking about somebody. Just replay 5 minutes into this race, for instance, and things go a bit wrong. But for Branchini, it has been just about as perfect as you would like it. As close as they've ever been, Samir Foch was 4/10 off of the back of Magazi a lap ago, but has fallen back just a little bit. Which one is faster in a straight line, do you reckon, the Bentley or the Ferrari?
I think setup depending, the Ferrari. The Ferraris can have some great straight line speed. I mean, what always used to jaw drop me was at Paul Ricard, even with race fuel, if you've got a low drag setup, that car will hit 280 kilometers an hour, like 282 maybe. It's just monumental down there. The Bentley has got a lot of power, but you have to remember it's, you know, it's like driving a 5-story block of flats, and that giant rear wing, which is great for downforce, is not really good for the old drag factor. Even if you take it to where it's basically nothing, it still has a lot of drag.
Drag Factor sounds like a bar I used to hang out in the early noughties. Moving right along from that, Neil Pimlott for VR Racing, one of the many drivers that race in VR. I remember when ACC came out, and I remember there was a general consensus of this game will never be viable for VR because it is so demanding and taxing. And oh boy, do those statements age like milk, don't they? As hardware gets more robust and ACC got more and more optimized, Not only is it viable, we have several drivers in this field that only race in VR. And if you've never had the pleasure, folks at home, it changes everything.
I mean, the one that always reminds me of that is Super Seb, that we sometimes call him, the 777 driver. He races exclusively in VR in a small corner of his living room.
He sure does. Well, his wife allots him that small corner of the living room, mind you.
That's very kind. He is allowed that one corner. But yeah, I always think that sometimes VR rigs look quite weird because you've got this steering wheel and you know, the an obvious rig setup and no screen.
Yeah, see, that was one thing with Seb I always thought was particularly peculiar because I've been a VR. I've championed VR for years, and I've always had a monitor, if nothing else, just to have as a mirror, and to go fully no monitor because you're so committed to VR. That is crazy to me, but I made those statements about a year ago, and I've had several people contact me and say, "Hey, I do the same thing," and apparently it's not that uncommon at all to not have a monitor. But I think I'm a little too attached to mine.
Yeah, I can't see getting rid of mine. I mean, I have VR. I've driven in it, but once again, I still have the main screen as kind of either a mirror or a backup. Just because it has happened before with me where I've had weirdness in VR and I've had to sort of reset and reboot back to the screen. I know I never trust myself. Basically, I don't trust me or the hardware is my general thing, but that is sometimes my luck. Don't count on any of my luck, and you'll be golden.
Yes, indeed. Well, the final 3.5 minutes of the race, one final push to get some positions back here. This is Bernier and Tyler Jason LaValle for PSR. And, well, even if LaValle gets by Bernier, I don't know if he's trying too hard to get by Bernier because he must feel that it is a bit futile at this point to do so, but you never can tell. A driver's pride is, of course, the most important thing when you're behind the wheel. But for Ben Norton, it's been a fantastic day. Qualified up near the front and has stayed there. Arasser is now into the second place position in silver. We didn't see what happened to Sebastian Trison, but something must have happened to the 56 because Arasser is in second in silver and Wachik in the 7 is in third in that class. Pimlott, though, is still behind Wachik, and Wachik is still behind Arasser. So that battle is going to come down to the final few moments. Speaking of coming down to the final few moments, the battle for second in pro, Magazi and Foch.
Yeah, looking at where our 106, the leader, currently is, he's got 2 laps around about to get this move done. Like I said, he's been catching up and then losing a bit, catching up. And for the Foch, the front end of that Ferrari looks that little bit twitchy. But Magazi has also been slowing down, I'd say, of the last few laps. That Bentley just having the edge taken off of it. It is one of those, if Foch can keep the front end of this car actually poised, you can see through the corners, the Ferrari is taking just that little bit more liberties. And can he do it? The other problem
I'm
that you've
actually
got,
sorry
you
to
know,
interrupt, Mawson, but I have just now deduced, thanks to the stewards, why Sebastian Trison is in 18th and not 15th. 5-second penalty for car 56 for contact with the 699, no doubt battling each other for second in class. And that has given the 56 a 5-second penalty. So that's where he fell through the field. The contact ended up dropping him several positions.
well, there you go. So that's kind of silver. So it's now between Irasa and Wojcik for second place. That is if the number 7 though he can't call the books just yet because Pimlott in that 913 as well. Everyone here still looking incredibly racy for the silver pack. And also, I've only just noticed everyone is an Aston Martin. So everyone has got the same problems of turbo lag, and it makes it just that little bit harder, doesn't it, if you're all in matched machinery?
Leader on the final lap of the race, and it's going to be pure pace between these three. This is second, third, and fourth in the silver class. And folks, I'm going to tell you firsthand, you don't want to be the guy that finishes fourth in this group. You want to be able to say, well, I at least beat one of them and finished on the podium. Some say two is the loneliest number, but I disagree. Fourth is the worst position you could finish. I'd rather DNF, because if you finish fourth, you don't even get a trophy. What is the point? And Pimlott will be thinking that as he attempts to move on Wachik in the next lap and a half. The leader, of course, on the final lap. These guys have a lap and a half left as they race back down the hill. It's been a fantastic race, and it's not over for second in pro as well. What will Samir Foch have for Magazi here? This is the final lap for these lads.
And Foch pushing it as far out as he dares. You're dicing with the track limits of doom here. The Triple Eight can keep it, but a little bit slower through Aqua Minerale. You can just see that Bentley scuttling away. Can anything be done in these final sets of corners? It would take quite the brave move as the Triple Eight tries it over the chicane for the last time, trying to just get anything, a better run, a better something. But I think 34 is going to hang on to it just about. So for the as we come around the final two corners, Alex Rogers just too far back now. And that is Branchedi, who takes the checkered flag for round one of the night out. What a great drive by that man in the 106. Magazi does hold on to second place, coming under the checkered flag now. Foch in third. Good drive, amazing drive from him. And Alex Rogers just comes home in fourth place, just that little bit outside.
It sure was. As we go back to the battle for the second and third podium spots, second, third, and fourth in silver. One last gasp at the bottom of the hill. You have to get the chicane right. And if you don't get it right, you have kissed your chances goodbye. Choking up on it right there was Michael Wachik, trying to get as close as he possibly can. Pimlott actually probably comes out the beneficiary. This could be a fight for third. Who is going to dare? Who is going to be latest on the brakes? He thinks about it, does Pimlott. Can't get it done. Not close enough. And I think they are going to finish line astern. Excellently raced between these three. And no harm and no foul. A flash of the lights from John Rasser as he will come across second. Ben Norton, of course, has already won in silver. Rasser second, and Wachik in the 7 third. Pimlott fourth in that class. What a fantastic race that was. Very respectful stuff. So much even so the stewards noticed how good a lot of the racing was. And for David Branchini, a very first win, unless I'm mistaken, that is Branchini's first ever win in Night Owl in the 106. Bentley reigns supreme. Magazi second in a Bentley as well. Foch rounds out your overall podium. Rogers Conway, the top five. Pierce, Stakecki, IPEC, the triple four. Benjamin Heilman does end up finishing inside the top 10, and the rest of your results confirmed as the results will scroll and show you the bottom half of the field. We had 34 cars, and all but 3 finished, apparently. Sanchez, Madre, and Payne all did not finish the race. The 30 No, actually, excuse me, there's more than that. I just noticed. But we had 28 finishers on the day out of 34. Ryan Mawson, takeaways from round one.
Well, takeaways from that, I don't think that the silver class is going to give us anything short of some amazing battles there. Right, even right down towards the end, they still hadn't sorted it out. Silver class is going to be definitely one to watch. And well, the main question is going to be, can anybody catch these mighty Bentleys? They're just looking so strong right off the bat. You know, obviously the drivers are very experienced in them. And the track's coming up as well. You know, it's not exactly going to be easy for any of the other drivers to muscle in on their territory.
Well, I'm curious myself if the Bentleys can keep it up. There are some tracks that will be coming up that probably don't favor them quite as much. And what will Benjamin Heilman do? He's a champion a night out. Top 10 is pretty decent, but I'm sure they will be wanting more as well. But race one in the books, and we'll be back with you the same time on Saturday for round number two. Ryan Mawson and I and Nick Setnick would love to have you there. But before that, the next race here on RCI TV will be the Thursday GT4 Championship, race number 2 in season 4. And that's brought to you by Josh and Tim with Christian on the broadcast. And if you're unfamiliar with that series, it's 2 30-minute sprint races. Fantastic stuff. Round 1 was awesome. Round 2 is going to be just as good. The Friday Enduro Series continues next Friday as well, with myself and Josh Leischen in the booth and Stewie on the broadcast for that. We would love to have you. And of course, Night Out in 1 week's time for round 2. Thank you to all of you for spending a little bit of your time with us. I've been Jesse Lee here with Ryan Mawson and Nick Setnick on the broadcast. A big thank you to all of the staff here, including the stewards, for all of their work. And we look forward to the races in the weeks to come. Thank you to all of our partners that make this race and every race possible as well. Join the Discord, like, subscribe, all of that stuff. And we'll see you next time. Have a good night.
See you on the next one.